So let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, Michael. My name is Claudia. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studio in Fairfax City. We are very humble and grateful that Michael Rother accepted our invitation to our show. Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Claudia. I'm happy to be with you
Sure, no
today.
problem. Michael, so what everything that is going on in the world with the pandemic and the vaccine and little by little countries are getting out of the pandemic. How's your how's have been your life, your family, your creativity, being stuck in a place for a year without being able to go out that much
Uh,
or tour?
well, of course, the pandemic also affected my musical life in a big way. Um, I had the last concert in March last year. That was a festival in Austria. And that was already at a time when my partner, friend said, well, Michael, I don't think you should go because the figures are exploding, the infection rates are going up. I took the risk because I thought this was still a responsible thing to do. But looking back, I know it was quite a risk. And after that, all the concerts, all the tours, everything was canceled, like for, I think, nearly all the musicians. And I was lucky that Grönland Records, my label, the label that also releases Neu and Harmonia, uh, asked me to release a second box set of my solo works. And we started talking about what to include in the box set apart from the original albums, which were obviously the first choice. And then I thought, well, I have this material in my archives, and it has been waiting so long because I was always too busy touring the world, playing all over the globe from, I don't know, China, Japan, Russia, Mexico, and Europe up and down. And unfortunately, I haven't been to the States, by the way, but
Really?
that has, well, in a long time,
I got you. Yeah.
since 2010. And that has to do with your unfortunate regulations. The administration makes it very hard for foreign musicians to enter your country to perform. It's a very unpleasant procedure. And I have fans in the US and people keep asking me to return. But with that kind of nightmare, the application process of a visa, it's so bad. I do not feel happy to come to the States. Last time, just a short excursion to that, when I had a visa, I had to leave the country on the day of the last concert. That was they were so strict, and it is nasty, I think that's what you can call it. It is very also stupid to cut a cultural exchange in that way. Anyway, coming back to what I was doing, I started working on this unreleased material, which had been in my archives for many years. And because of my busy schedule, I never had the time to concentrate, because that's what I have to do if I want to release something and work on music, new music. I need a quiet, regular schedule for the days. I can't run around and book flights and jump into a plane or train to go somewhere. And I started working on my album, which is called Dreaming, which was then released in September last year as part of the box set, and also as an individual CD and vinyl. And that kept me very busy and made me very happy because not only I was not surprised, I wouldn't say that, because I knew there was very good material waiting to be finished, but I got so much positive response to Dreaming that seems especially that album made many people happy. And so working on music just went on. Then, of course, I did some lengthy interview sessions last summer. And after that, my partner, Italian partner, and I started working on new music. So the good thing about the modern technology, which is available for musicians, the computerized, if you like, apparatus, allows it to work wherever you are, more or less. When I finished working on Dreaming, I threw my gear into my car, the live gear, which I usually take to travel around the world to present music. And I drove all the way. It was a drive of 2 days. It was quite a long drive. But driving, of course, I had the possibility of taking all the toys, all the gear, everything that I need to record new music. And I'm looking back, I'm glad that I didn't take the easy way and just hopped with a computer on a plane. So now I have all the tools I need to work, and we've been doing a lot of music. And even now I'm editing the first single, well, I don't want to talk too much about that, but it's just music goes on, and there was no time for boredom for me, luckily. There is a concert scheduled for September in Austria again, strangely. I'm not 100% sure that we can do the concert, because you may also have heard, or it's probably also the situation in the States, that Delta virus variant is around and getting stronger and seems to be more infectious and causing higher infection figures. So it's not totally sure, really. I mean, people want to have concerts, it's clear. The audience want to enjoy the situation, the live feel, and the promoters want to get busy. I guess I will do the planning for the concert as best as I can, but there's always the possibility that it has to be cancelled. I guess that's all I can say at the moment.
Wow.
I'm following the development very closely, nearly all around the world. I also follow what's happening in the States after the last president had a very poor figure in that pandemic. What a crazy period that is over.
Yep, yeah. I know exactly what you mean, man. I feel the same way, so don't worry. Where are you? Let's go back to the beginning. Like, were you born like in a musical family? When you start playing, piano, guitar at the time? Were you brother, sister, your parents?
My mother was a trained classical piano player, yeah, and she loved music with all her heart. But she was born at the wrong time, I guess, and the bad economic situation in Germany in the 30s prevented her from fulfilling, after graduating at music school, the conservatorium. She was ready to go on stage to play classical pieces, but that was not possible. She was forced, to support her parents in that economic crisis. And then marrying my father, and with the Second World War, which hit Europe or the world, that was sort of the end of her dreams of being a professional musician. But I think that the genes, sort of, the musical mind was passed on to me.
Yeah.
And I guess from my father's side, there was more the organizational talent. He worked for Lufthansa. He was a manager for Lufthansa, and so that sort of the two worlds that, or the two hearts, if you want, that beat inside my chest, and the love for music. And I tried to combine it with good planning and good organization.
Yeah, I got you. Well, beautiful, man. Well, in a way, you're doing what you like. She would have been very happy that you became a musician, you know.
Oh, she was around already quite a long time, and she saw at the beginning when I joined the school band Spirits of Sound. I was 15. My love for music. It was wonderful, really. Now, as a grown-up looking back, I know she must have been so patient and good, full of goodwill. My first steps on the guitar, plonk, plink, plonk, for hours every day. And then she always supported my wish or my desire to do music, never put any stones in my path. My father died when I was 16, or actually 15. And if he hadn't died, I guess the story could have developed in quite a different way, because the family was supposed to leave Düsseldorf, and it was sort of a step over for my father's career. And we could have moved to the States even. And so, yeah, but that's family history sort of. And when I joined Kraftwerk in 71, then started Neu in 72, and then moved to Force to start Harmonia, she followed my steps. I think she kept her fears mostly to herself, which probably most parents, or especially mothers, have when their children become musicians and follow something that fills them with joy, instead of thinking, how can I make as much money as possible in the fastest way? But luckily, she also experienced when in 1977, my first solo album came out, and there was so much success in the following years. And so I guess we never talked about that really, but I know that she was happy for me. That's the bottom line.
That's a good slide. Where before, so when you finished the equivalent of high school, gymnasium, it's called in Germany.
Yeah.
The gymnasium. And that was, how many years was between finishing high school and then your involvement in Kraftwerk? Were you in any band, and then at the time you decided, well, I don't want to go to college. Music is my thing, and I want to concentrate all my effort. And then you end up. Feel free to elaborate on how.
Yeah, I finished school with Abitur. That's the graduation. You probably know.
Yeah.
In 1969.
Yeah.
And then there was the draft to the military, which I refused. We in Germany back then, I think there's something on the draft card burning in the States. I remember during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And I refused to join the military, and there was a court hearing which I had to endure. I didn't convince the people. They were probably not willing to be convinced of my reasons. It had to be a conscience, a strong force of your conscience that prevented you from joining the military. That was the only reason, apart from severe medical problems. But of course, they didn't accept my view of world politics. I remember having a very strong discussion with these people. It was like at court, as if I were some kind of defendant, and had to explain why I had to kill this person. It was very unpleasant, but that were the times. There was this big fear. The Cold War was still in full play. We had the Russian sort of invasion of Czechoslovakia in '68, and there was this constant fear of atomic war starting, nuclear weapons being used, and the Russians crossing the border and the German River border to Poland, and suddenly you look down the barrel of a, well, you don't say barrel, but maybe you do, of a panzer, of a tank. But it was really a crazy time back then. A lot of fear. I had many bad dreams, and but no force would have made me join the military. I was so totally sure of myself. And then I was accepted as a conscientious objector, and chose a mental institute near Düsseldorf, because I was at the time also very interested in psychology. Maybe the very normal desire of young people to find out how we tick, what forces are in your mind or in your soul that lead you and make you find certain decisions. And that was, apart from being very happy and in the end also successful musician, that was such a valuable time in my life. The 1.5 years spent working with handicapped people, with people that had drug problems, that were in this mental institute for very many different reasons, and trying to add some color to the life, because back then this institute was very conservative, and the idea until that point was to just keep the people in the hospital, give them the medication and food, and that's it. And at the time, '69, there were young, what's the English word? My vocabulary is always failing me. It was a monastery, sort of, and there were young members of the monastery who had revolution in mind, like they wanted to change this, and so we were natural allies, and so those were the people I worked with, and until '71. And one of the other guys who was also a conscientious objector, he was a guitar player like me. He once asked me, would you like to join me? I have this invitation to go to a studio after we were on a demonstration in the center of Düsseldorf. I don't remember the cause we were following, but there were many reasons to object to cultural and social situations in Germany, political situations. And I really just, for a few minutes or for a few moments, thought, actually, I wanted to go home to meet my girlfriend after the demonstration. But then I decided, okay, well, I'll join him, although the band's name didn't ring a bell. I didn't know the band. And I thought, Kraftwerk sounds a bit funny, like silly.
That's a weird,
Yeah, and so I ended up in the Kraftwerk studio, met the Kraftwerk guys, Florian Schneider. Back then his name was Schneider Eschewing. He dropped the Eschewing at some point. Ralf Hütter and Klaus Dinger, who became my partner in Neu. And I jammed with Ralf Hütter, funnily enough. And that was one of the big moments, like reaching a crossroads, because until that moment, I had fallen out of love with the music I had been doing for 6 years. Like in my first steps on the guitar, my heroes were Beatles, Kings, Stones, then later Eric Clapton, Cream, Yardbirds, Jeff Beck, and then of course Jimi Hendrix. Suddenly, this apparition, this star fell from the skies. He was so special. I was a total fan, and I tried to copy as much of their ideas as possible. But getting older at school, I sort of realized, well, being a copycat or even taking these wonderful ideas of these musicians and trying to develop them further or change them, adapt them, that doesn't fulfill me as a musician. As I wanted to also express my own personality individually, individuality in music. And so I became rather unhappy. That was about 1970. And thought, okay, the past is gone for me. I'm not going back. I didn't want to play these fast licks on the guitar anymore. The structures didn't make sense to me. But I didn't know any other musician who had similar ideas. There was not a network like nowadays. People know much more about what is happening around them through social media, and you can find out. I mean, it has its traps, of course, this overload of information, but you have the possibility of finding people who could even have the same idea. If you upload some music to some site and then you get feedback, you're connected. But back then I was isolated. I felt completely alone. And meeting Ralf Hütter and the other boys, I thought, wow, this is a dream come true, because it was clear from the very first minute, sort of, we had the same language we were taking our sources from. It was a Middle European root, free from blues, no connection to blues, no jazz. It was music. You can, if you want to go into theories, you probably find out folk music roots, classical roots, but it was a Central European idea of melody and harmony.
Yeah.
And so we jammed, and I thoroughly enjoyed throwing ideas around with Ralf Hütter. And the other boys, Florian and Klaus, were listening. And I think they had big ears at some point and thought, wait a minute, there's something in the air. And so we exchanged phone numbers, and I don't know, 2 weeks later, I was a member in the band. Funnily enough, without Ralf Hütter, because he had left. You may know that he left. He left the band for, I don't know, half a year to return to university for that time.
And then, so you were with Klaus only a short period of time, and then in Kraftwerk, and then the two of you formed the band Noia, right? And yeah, the two of you. And then, why do you say, if you like the atmosphere of what Kraftwerk was doing, and you were happy, why you guys decided, Klaus and yourself, okay, let's form our own band, Noia, and then do something different? What was the reason of?
Well, I think it just moved in steps. At the beginning, I was totally thrilled because it was suddenly a professional world.
Yeah.
We had more than 1,000 people at the concerts.
Yeah.
But the idea was to play songs from the first Kraftwerk album.
Yeah.
And although I took all the liberties, and Florian didn't object, I played my own parts and I didn't try to replace Ralf Hütter or replay his musical ideas, which you can hear on the original tracks on the album. But it was fine. It was very exciting, especially also musically, because Klaus Dinger was a great, great drummer. Such a force. I had never met anyone with that kind of determination and physical power at the drums. And Florian was also an amazing musician with exciting, crazy stuff on his electronic flute especially. And we had some very good nights. We had also some bad nights. I think because this was very improvised, spontaneous music.
Yeah.
And when the spirit was not good, there were fights going on, unfortunately, especially between Florian and Klaus, two very strong-headed and troubled, to a certain degree, troubled persons. So there were very good nights, okay nights, and also some less good nights we played. But then we tried to record the second Kraftwerk album and failed at that. And I mean, we tried with Conny Plank. That was the best choice, of course. Conny Plank, the producer who joined us for many years, especially also in my career. He was very important. But the excitement that the good concerts had, what couldn't be recreated in the studio, especially with the limitations of the material we had developed.
Yeah.
And so I think after 5 days or something like that, we realized that we were not going to finish an album. We were frustrated, of course, and because of the struggles that also were constantly in the air, Klaus Dinger and we talked about, well, we have more in common with one another than we have with Florian. And so Florian also wanted to end the collaboration, so it doesn't really matter who says where this is ending. We agreed on not wanting to continue. But then Klaus and I decided to just continue as a duo. It was clear that we wouldn't try to be a live band as a duo. That was something in those days. I don't know, even today it's very difficult. But then we talked to Conny Plank, and he was willing and also very willing, happy to work with us, because Conny Plank was sort of the equivalent on the technical side. He was crazy. He was totally fascinated about creating sounds, creating new mixing situations, and being creative at that. And so there were no limits to our experimentations. And so we were happy to go into the studio with him. It was the only tricky part was that Klaus and I were poor people. We didn't have rich families like I think it's fair to say Florian and Ralf had as their backgrounds. And so we had to scratch all the money, get the money we could collect. And we put up 5,000 Deutschmarks because it was clear for us from the very beginning that we wouldn't approach a label. That's, I think, what many beginner bands or also today do, that they send a demo to a record label and then ask for a budget so that they can spend time in a professional studio. We wanted to be in control of the music, and so it was necessary to also pay the studio out of our own pockets.
Yeah, good.
And with, I think, with the help from above or from wherever, we were able to record the first Neue album in 5 nights. We worked at night. It was cheaper. You know, the studio rent was a lot cheaper at night than during the day. I actually hate working at night. I always hated that. I remember the second Neue album was also created and recorded in the winter time.
Yeah.
And it was dark when we got out of the studio, and it was dark when we went into the studio.
Yeah.
So when we woke up in the afternoon after sleeping, it was already dark again. And so it was always dark. This, I would nowadays, and already for many years, I would always avoid at all costs to work in darkness, you know, and not see daylight. But yeah, the experience with Conny Plank in the first Neue album, and then presenting the music to my family, to my girlfriend, and to the record label, and suddenly hearing people getting very, very excited.
Yeah. Yeah, both albums were very good. The one from '72, and then the other, the Neue, the album from '75. You got very good reception, you know.
Well, '75 was already the third Neue album. That was Neue '75.
Yeah.
And you're right. But in the beginning, like for the first time, when the first Neue album came out in early '72, it was great to go into the amusement district in Düsseldorf, where the record shops were, and to see the cover of the first Neue album everywhere, and also to pass some bars and some discotheques and to hear Hallo Gallo and Negativland. That was quite a trip, quite an experience.
Yeah, Hallo Gallo was very well known, you know, even from the beginning, you know, so it was good.
Yeah, it gave a lot of boost. But then, of course, you probably lead to the next question, but